Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, another production of Gorecom, in which we're speaking to Bernard Tuniol at HPQ Silicon. This is the Singapore edition. And Bernard, you woke me up for this, actually, after going 21 hours straight with a conference and some big meetings here and some big stuff maybe we'll talk about. You woke me up in Singapore, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna get a comment from a few people that says, no, you should have let George sleep. There's nothing new to learn about this, but still,
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I know that's what we thought last interview.
Mm-hmm.
And you came out with some doozy answers that that a lot of people noticed, and I obviously noticed with my reaction during the interview. So here's the press release. Silicon-based anode batteries achieve 3,700 plus milliamperes with 96% capacity retention, and that's after 200 cycles, which surpasses commercial alternatives by 66%. Even though that's a word salad, I think all of us understand that that is pretty significant. So, question, same one I asked you last week. The results are great after 200 cycles. No one's going to take that for granted. But wasn't that a given based on the prior results at 50, 100, 150 cycles? What's so significant about the 200 cycle mark?
Okay. Allow me to give away a bit of a industry secret. Okay. Getting better performance with silicone at 50, 100, 150 was good because we were in the high numbers, but it's not something that's unheard of. The issue becomes when you can pass the 150 mark, okay, to 200 mark, and still stay above 95 or 94%. In the 90%.
96.
We're at 96. Okay, so it's like still being in this area. That is what starts to make our results very phenomenal. Okay, we knew we were going to go there. We had no doubt we're hitched there, but this is the difference. And 50 cycle plays a lot into it. People can just take a look because for well, we'll show it later when we show the graphs, but in design,
you're talking about the 50 cycle increments.
Yeah, the 50 cycle increment, because you clearly see, okay, between 150 and 200, Gen 1 and Gen 2 died off. Okay. And that is what usually happens with SiO(X) or silicone, just SiO(X) type of material, which is the reason why the battery, the reference battery we gave you, okay, by 500 cycle, it's lost about 60% of its, it retains 60, depending which data sheet you look, between 53 and 60% after 500 cycle. Yet that is a commercial battery right now, okay? So, people have to understand that, and people like to throw the numbers. No, you need 3,000 cycles. It really depends on your application and what you're using it. Okay? Yeah. If you need a battery with high power, okay, which is what these batteries are high power. The offset is, it'll last less long. That's a given. It's always a given. What's great about our material is that we are combining both of them.
So, question. I asked you this last week. Mm-hmm. Is the next one going to be 250 and then 300, maybe straight to 300? Where do we end this? And where does Gen 4 begin? Where does optimize Gen 3? How does this play out over the next? Because now they're coming out pretty rapidly. So, I may still be in Singapore by the time the next one comes out. What's the strategy there?
Well, the strategy is just update investors, because okay, one part is update investors about the quality of the work that we're doing. Okay, and I've said many times what we're doing right now is similar in concept to what we did with fume silica, which is we started to produce some interesting material. It started to attract some interest. It started got some traction, and then it snowballed slowly. Okay, because nothing really moves that fast in this type of business, but it's snowballed to the right direction where we end up signing an LOI for the fume silica. And eventually, I think in the battery space, it'll move faster because our material can help multiple different players in the industry, okay? It can either help a battery manufacturer gain an advantage, and it can help a battery manufacturer maintain a production line which they were going to give up, because where the 18650 is going to be gradually transferred to something else, to 2700. Okay. So if we can deliver as efficient batteries as the bigger one when they're using different type of chemicals, it's much better. So the importance of this is we're doing something that not too many people have done, and we're showing it almost live, and showing it live, in the sense that
Do you want to bring up? Do you want to bring up the two graphs right now? Is this a good time to bring them up here?
Probably would be a good time. Sorry, I always forget the share button. You're seeing it?
I'm seeing it for sure. On the
Okay,
left side, for everyone, we got capacity, total
And
capacity, and on the right side, we got, the relative capacity. So which one's more? To me, it seems like battery capacity is still so important because you're above 3,800 in total. But that's my opinion. Walk us through what we're looking at.
3,700. We're 3,700, but it's still very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. So
there's a lot of things that's very interesting to pan out. One of them is, okay, we're still at 3,700 milliampere after 200 cycle. Okay, which is, and if you read the press release, which is what I really find fascinating and powerful. Okay, that is even above a brand new battery. So after 200 cycle, okay, if you buy a brand new battery that's only going to last 500 cycle, okay, depending on which battery you take, we're either going to be plus 25% more performing. So our 200 cycle battery is still 25% more performing than a commercially available batteries at 200. When you buy it, okay. And it depends on the battery, between 8 to 2 issues, but that's really where the situation go. And then you go. And if you compare that to what that battery does at 200 cycle, then we jumped up through the roof. Like we jumped between 25 to 66% more performing. So of course, our type of batteries of the material going forward has a lot of commercial potential already. Okay, so that's what I'm showing. And the importance of the 50 threshold that we use, increment that we use, is that you can clearly see here. Okay, first of all, you can clearly see between the 150 and 200. Okay, it went below graphite. Okay, so, and it broke down exactly as we expect to see when it's SiOX, not even partially optimized of a battery.
So those are the Gen 1 and Gen 2, to be clear.
Gen 1 and Gen 2. And we see that the Gen 3 is following a graphite-like, which means a slow pace degradation. And if we can continue on this slow pace degradation, by 500 cycle, we will be much better than those 3 commercial batteries out there, which is demonstrating that we have a commercial.
Can you say that with certainty right now, Bernard? Like, could you know that?
No. Those are sort of like modelization progression, assuming this thing. We can only say it once we'll have the results. Okay, but we say assuming if it continues in the same trajectory, that's where we're going. That's pretty darn. That's already a commercially available. That's already a commercial type of material that could interest people. So,
well, you know what I'm going to ask you next?
Yes.
Great if it's interesting people. Okay, great, no doubt about that. How much is interesting to people is the phone ringing? When you get to that point, when you get to that fume silica point, when all of a sudden you start getting calls on fume silica, and look where it's at. Is this now at 200 cycles, given the drop off on Gen 1 and Gen 2? Is this the point where you've already getting calls, or you should start getting calls?
Okay. We were already getting calls at 150. Okay. Now at 200, there's going to be even more call. Because those are phenomenal results. There's no other way of seeing it now. It'll translate into it, but it's heading in the right direction. It's sort of a bit like When you remember when I said the fume silica, if we make it, we'll be able to sell. Well, we're making it's in the battery space. We're doing it, and battery space is a wide market. Okay, there's no one
course.
specific
It's
market
massive.
into it. It's a massive market. It's not going to get any smaller. And we're demonstrating an ability to do these type of material that can improve battery performance. We can do it in North America. We can do it in Europe. That's what really positions us in a unique position. Positions us in a unique position. One of my best sentences yet.
Yeah, that's a Bernieism. Check.
Bernieism.
Um,
Check. Okay.
so what's the plan? Do you go 250, 300 with the Gen 3? We're still in non-optimized, right? I mean, you're pretty
We're in
optimized, but
partially op okay. We're in partially optimized. And if you
yeah,
go back
same thing when I
to
say non-optimized or partially means it's not optimized yet, which is great because it means there's more to come. But is that when you switch to Gen 4? Or do
that's
you keep going with Gen 3 at the 250 and 300 cycles? What's the
well
strategy there?
at this moment, our curiosity is to figure out how far we can go. Let's presume we go to 300 cycle and still have those above 90% result. Then we'll know we're in a unique space for it, and there'll be a market for people that want those type of batteries. And then do we work at starting building this? And at the same time, we can do a Gen 4, but at this moment, we're going to be focused more on Gen 3 because the more we learn about what we did correct at Gen 3, the better we can do the Gen 4. In addition to the high record, we want to make sure that we replicate this slow degradation. So it's all playing into where it is, you know. So the more results we see, the more 50 results we go, it's like a goal interception, you know. It gets to be bigger, bigger. You know, you can have a massive goal hit, which is when you got one nugget and you got nothing, okay, when you start doing the additional drilling, or you can have a small amount of gold and then keeps increasing as you get more length into it. So this is where it comes into it. So for us, understanding how far we can go with the battery we've made is very important.
And you kind of sum that up in the press release where you say surpassing the Murata high performance US 18650 battery by 25% compared to its advertising starting capacity of 3,000 milliamperes and by 66% compared to its capacity at 200 cycles.
Yeah. So I wanted people to get an image that basically replicate or basically be able to visualize what this means. In addition to seeing the nice graph that shows the material, what this shows is the batteries we've been doing, okay? At 200 cycle is still better than brand new batteries you can buy, which is going to give more value to the battery because it's a value of the battery that lasts longer. And then when you compare it to the same battery that's been basically the commercial backbone of certain part of the market, okay? Because the Murata, okay, is the ex-Sony. It was a Sony division of batteries that was sold to another Japanese company.
Because I didn't know what that
So,
was, actually.
you know, that's Murata manufacturer, but originally it was known as a Sony battery. Okay. So it is one of the benchmark type of batteries that people look at. But it is still one of those batteries that, you know, after 500 cycles, they've lost 50%, almost between 50 and 60% of their capacity. So if they start at 3,000, 50 is 1,500. Okay. We start at 3,800 some odds, and we're still 3,700 at 200 cycles.
3,000. By the way, that's world record material. That's world that we kind of talked about this. When does that become official? Not that you need to, like, we're not looking to, you know, have Guinness Book of World Records, but, you know, is it important? Would that drive the commercial side even more if you officially went, you know, independent analysis, et cetera, and so on, and you officially could claim that world record? Wouldn't there be a lot of value there? Because the remaining capacity, your quote, the remaining capacity of 37, 34 milliamperes exceeds the starting capacities of leading 18650 battery models, right? That's pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, it is intense. It's a fact about 200. Now we're in discussion with you know, the organization that can give you the stamping, but you know, they sort of have like a monopolistic position and they can charge you an arm and a leg for nothing, something really that important. So we're looking at it. Plus, we know it doesn't take a genius once you start to see those type of results to say, okay, they're really out there on the top. Because you'll have noticed that companies publish their first result and then they stop talking about it. And why is it? Well, it's because it's known. Okay, if you add SIOX for the first 150, like I was talking, I've been talking. See, the reason why I'm very happy about being able to talk about 200 and 250, okay, is that you'll talk to people of the industry and 150, everybody can do that. 200, this result, no, not everybody can do that. Novation did it. That's what changes.
So
That's what
expecting
changes.
you're expecting the phone's going to really start.
Well, the phone was ringing
this is the
before,
number where
George.
the phone starts ringing.
The phone's going to be ringing, and it's going to be a bit like in fumed silica. Okay, they're going to be saying, it's too good to be true. Is it? It's going to play, but that's normal in this type of business. It's sort of a very conservative business. But I can tell you that even based on the results of 150, okay, multiple different groups were approaching us. Even some multinational companies that we have under NDAs for other type of business that have multiple divisions are coming and knocking on our doors and says, oh, by the way, you guys want to talk to our guys in charge of the battery division? So this is what's moving on. This is what's going on. It is starting to get noticed.
Wow. Okay, that's a new one. That's a new one. So LOIs or NDAs from others for other parts of the company, which if I had to guess, the fumed silica side, maybe there's some fumed silica guys who are conglomerates. And am I able to kind of take you down that path, or are you going to give me the
no? I'm gonna stay more. We sign a heck of a lot of NDAs with different type of companies, but as I said, we have ongoing multiple discussion with people that are involved into the synthetic graphite business, and they're showing an interest into it. You're gonna have people that are gonna involve into silicon. You're gonna have the gauntlet of type of companies. So
the official world record, which would be great, because I got to admit, and I think I speak on behalf of a lot of investors, that would be really great to say it's official. But it sounds like if you have to pay a ton of money, I'd rather you just get samples, for lack of a better term, like we did fume silica, to a couple of big potential customers, partners, call them whatever you want to call them, and let them do their independent testing. Because if they come back and they say good to go, then who cares if it's official world record somewhere? The industry speaking. So would that be fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. That's fair to say.
Dr. Crane, I positioning it as a breakthrough in battery technology. Now I'll read the preamble of that, but that final 5-6 words there. The observed 36% capacity improvement, minimal degradation over 200 cycles, underscores the material's potential to enhance energy density, extend operational lifespan of lithium-ion batteries, positioning it as a breakthrough in battery technology. That's a big statement. A breakthrough in battery technology.
Yes, and I will put this in this perspective, okay? There are battery technology with silicone added material that can reach those type of results. But all of them use a material that is so expensive, which is using silane gas as its feedstock, okay? That it will never be competitive in the market. It will be very niche market oriented for very specific, but it will not be mass market oriented, okay? What we're doing is, remember, our material starts fundamentally with metallurgic grade silicone metal, upgraded metallurgic grade silicone metal, but still metallurgic grade silicone metal. Then we do all the thing to make it, silicone based anode material, engineered silicone material for batteries. But our own secret recipe and all those issues, which I'm not going to divulge. I don't know. I find it funny people saying, well, he's not divulging until they divulge it. I don't believe it. I don't really care if you don't. I'm not going to divulge it to you. I'm not even going to divulge it to people on an NDA. Signing an NDA doesn't mean we tell you everything.
That means whatever we tell you, you have to non-disclose.
Exactly.
But doesn't mean we have to tell you everything.
We don't tell you everything. So
that's like getting married. You don't got to tell your wife everything, but whatever you tell her better be true.
Well, I won't go into marriage counseling. That's not my forte. Um,
There's been a little discussion about you're talking about the market for 18650, and now you've been
well,
talking about
yeah,
20%. That
if we're
doesn't mean that those are the only markets you're looking at. You're just
no,
kind of using these for benchmark purposes, right?
yeah, well, no, yeah, yes, okay. I'm just anyway. The reason, and I want to go back to what Jed said. Okay, he also made a second quote where he said, "Very excited by the fact that our partially optimized Gen 3 material is able to reduce observed degradation past 170 cycles." It goes back to what I've been saying. Okay, going to 150 with those type of results. When we were talking to people, they said, "We've seen this, we've done this, but you can't go above 150." And I can tell you from discussion we've had, a lot of people have made an X on this and says it's impossible. Okay. And for whatever reason, and then we've done it and we're doing it. We keep moving forward. So that's a very, very big key for it. And we're just partially optimized. You're right. We still have room, we still have thinking where we can improve it. So we go back to your question about why do I talk about 18650 and 2700 battery. It's fundamentally just to show it. Right now, there is a lot of discussion about the size of penetration of EV market, and everybody's talking about EU. You have to make your batteries for EVs, and you need 2,000 cycles. There's a lot of BS being said by a lot of but there is a lot of BS being said.
Well,
Okay?
that's because the industry, George Com graphite or George Com nickel, what do to try and get a little promotion, all that? It's like EV batteries, the demand, the projections, and we're going to feed nickel or cobalt or whatever. So everyone's so focused on EV batteries, but the fact of the matter is,
There are
you can
multiple.
attack
Yeah, and the idea was just
anyone.
to the idea was to show that there's a very big market for what we're doing right now. We're coming into it. It's actually bigger than the fume silicon. That's just the 18650 batteries. Okay, not 100% goes to our material, but it plays into it. And that's the important, just to show that there's multiple areas, because if everybody keeps talking about the EV, whenever there's a negative news about the EV market or it's taking longer than expected, people think it's going to affect us. It's not going to affect us. It's going to have no bearing on what we're doing. The only thing it's going to affect us in the overall demand is that there is a graphite shortage. Okay, and people have to get this into their head. There is a graphite shortage. There's going to be a graphite shortage, and the graphite shortage is going to be made even worse by the fact that China is going to be limiting graphite export. So one of the ways to meet all the demands for the batteries, whichever type they are, okay, is going to be find a way to reduce a bit the demand of graphite. How you can do that? By putting silicone into it. That's been one of our argument or one of our thesis, okay? And now that we're able to demonstrate that our batteries can be as we advertise, better performance, have long cycle life, and we replace graphite. Not a bad situation. So that's the
In a
key point.
way, I'm kind of saying this on air. I'm in Singapore. I'm at a very big conference here, which is more crypto and things like that. But I happen to have some. We're going to announce some big announcements out of Agoracom, and I'll save that for later. But as well, those announcements today, I was having conversations with one of the lead people on Dubai's drone project. And the drone project, a lot of people don't know this, is uh, carrying people, autonomous, let's call it flying taxis, for certain lack of a better term. And they're accelerating because they're supposed to start in 2026, but it looks like they're going to start mid 2025. And we were talking about batteries for those because I asked them that, and they said, "Yeah, that's constant. They've got a pretty good beat on it." We didn't go into too much detail. I'm going to make an introduction, by the way, but they were talking about the fact that batteries going to be really important, and that they need to that they need to augment or find a way to get away from just pure graphite. So that's just one example. Today, me having a 45-minute conversation. This wasn't passing in the aisle somewhere. This was a real sit-down conversation. So there are multiple uses, and we don't have to focus just on electric vehicles. I want to ask you. I want to bring in some questions from a question from an investor who said, "Congrats on today's press release. In my opinion, Gen 3 is already a marketable solution with regard to performance. What can you say about this?" And specifically, quote, "When you replace part of the graphite in a battery by Gen 3 silicon-based anode material, what will this do to the price of the battery?"
Okay, that's an interesting point, but people have to realize that the percentage of silicon we put into it in the anode material, because the big price of a battery is the cathode and the anode comes into it. So we were actually having some type of discussion in internal. It will have a minimal impact, okay? And the way the impact is really calculated, all right, is on the cost per watt generated.
Yeah.
We haven't finalized all those issues, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out that since where our feedstock is at the basic metallurgical grade silicon metal that we've improved all the way to make it our type of material, we're not in the same price range as the Scylla, the Group 14, and these type of guys. Okay, so the performance improvements of the batteries will basically make it self-paying into it. Now, what I know from battery manufacturers, they're cheap bastards. Okay, and sometimes the cost is more important, but we know one thing: so if we improve by 30% the battery performance, then we can actually estimate between 30 to 60% more than what they're paying for the high performance graphite, which is very expensive too. So it's all a question. It's all a question to, but we fully understand and fully expect that it's going to be like a downward sloping curve with regard to what you're going to get into it. You have to develop a material that can be made cheap, and you can continuously improve your manufacturing process to reduce the cost. So the big argument is we're not really worried, because our feedstock comes from and eventually in the entire HPQ history or project is that we're going to start with the QRR to make our own feedstock. And there's some inherent advantage with the QRR. So eventually, as we grow that business, we'll also control the other side of the business. Where people get into trouble is that they assume price range when they do their business case, and then something changes in the dynamics and it completely blows their calculation. In our case, we have multiple options. At the beginning, we can start with buying our material and improving it, buying the feedstock, and then we can do our own, and we'll basically be able to calculate basically have a much better control over the entire feedstock. So I think we're incredibly well positioned.
It's a great question. It's a great question. I never really thought about it before, because I guess innately my business sense assumed that you're not achieving these results by surpassing the cost to the end user by more than those results, because it wouldn't matter at that point. If you're getting great performance, but your increase in price is up to here, then you probably wouldn't be doing this until you figured how to get the price. So I guess I always assumed it, but great question, right? Great question, because this goes to show you that we don't always take these things into account. But great question, and I assume that wasn't going to be an issue, because there's just no point in doing that. So we'll wait for, I'm going to assume 250 is next. So we'll stop the conversation right there for battery. Really quickly, there are two things I want to address. One, it's September 18th. How are we looking on fume silica? I'm gonna ask that question. So far, so good. 12 days away, so people are now starting to say, okay, it's 12 days. Bernard's telling us everything's looking good, but it's like a baby now. We're starting to get to that, the countdown. Are we looking good for end of September?
We're looking good for end of September. Starting to make material. We'll come up with an update relatively soon. But on the overall big picture of fume silica, that's the one thing I have less worried than an issue. And interestingly, in the blogosphere, okay, I saw some people making comments. It took them long to start the machine for the QRR. Well, that's true. I recognize this. But as I've been saying, and I want to repeat this, okay, we've learned a lot from from the QRR, and there's a lot of transfer, okay, to the fume silica reactor. So basically, because the technology is much simpler, the process is much simpler. I actually do not anticipate those type of, we start and it's a long lead up. We believe that when we start, we'll start making material, then we'll work on improving it. So we're still on target for end of September start and moving forward. And it doesn't affect at all the relationship with the Evonik or all these issues. These guys understand that the industrial technologies that do such a big game changer thing. You don't really look that much at the timeline. Shareholders do. I get that. I understand that. I understand I have to live up to this, but big industrial companies that are looking at, cutting the cost of manufacture by 90%.
Yeah,
It's
listen,
not it's not the same relative importance.
not at all, because they are looking at how this can impact their business next 5-10 years. But having said that, yeah,
Mhm.
as shareholders,
Mhm.
we just want to cross that threshold. So we're looking good. Bottom line is, it's
Yeah,
next 12 days. We're looking good.
that's probably you'll get an update. Looking good.
All right. I like the little smirk. I like the little, Cheshire cat smile. The last thing I want to bring up, it's not a question, but it's
Mhm.
a subject that's really important to all of us here.
Mhm.
Uh, we released, Agoracom released its interview with Terry Lynch,
Mhm.
who is the founder of Save Canadian Mining, the advocacy group that's, along with Eric Sprott and all those big names, Rob
Mhm.
McEwen, is fighting the government, the banks, the regulators about naked short selling. So we had an important update, really important update. In
Mhm.
fact, organized crime came up as part of a pleading in another lawsuit, as uh, and so that's going to shock everybody. So I'm going to ask everybody that's watching this, uh, go find it on our YouTube channel, because it's really important,
Mhm.
uh,
I
because it
agree.
impacts all of us.
It does.
B, I'm going to ask all the shareholders, listen, guys, HPQ have been some of the most active, smart, great investors. I'm going to ask you all, you're going to see, we're asking for everyone's participation because we need to, but you're also going to see that there are going to be real financial rewards to investors, because we're going to begin the social media campaign in about 10 days. There are going to be real financial rewards to investors who, since you're already guys on Agoracom and CEO.ca, Stockhouse, at this point right now, for the purposes of the naked short selling fight, this brawl that Terry called it, it doesn't matter what flag you carry, whether it's Agoracom, CEO.ca guys, Stockhouse guys.
Mhm.
Please go watch that interview and really pay particular attention to the last 7 or 8 minutes, how we talk about how Terry's planning to reward big rewards. So I want everyone to know that. Um, but even if the rewards weren't there, we now need to fight. A couple of words from you, Bernard, because I know 359.59 downticks have been very
Yeah.
important and agitating to you. And
Mhm.
Terry actually points that out. He says that's one of the things we are going to be hitting the regulators and government really hard on, is the 359.59 downticks. Thoughts from you and how important this is, and and
Um.
and and how supportive HPQ Silicon is going to be in
Oh,
this fight.
I'm gonna be very supportive. The 5959 from House 79 is a classic. It's literally a classic. Like it's very funny. And also one of the other things that we're going to be attacking, hopefully, is spoofing, where by
Yes,
magic,
Terry mentions
okay,
that.
by magic, 20 orders appeared at the same second for 7 different house. Only a computer bot can do that. But the brokerage house allowed these things. So yes, no, of course, HPQ is definitely going to be there. We have been affected. We will every junior company has been affected. We are affected by now. I can see that when I look at the market, and I can see that they have their trolls, going on social media trying to minimize it and always blaming the companies and always come up with, there's different level of troll levels doing this, and
Fudsters.
there's fudsters. They're just trying to find ways of futzing around. So I just get people, take a serious look at what's going on and do not be surprised about this. So basically, yeah, cool. I'm definitely going to be
Yeah,
supportive.
Terry actually specifically mentions two things: the 359.59 little downticks, the
Mhm.
last possible second, and the spoofing. He goes, a million shares. They do that, and then throughout the day they're playing the games, and magically a million shares will show up on the ask.
Mhm.
And a minute, 30 seconds to a minute later, they vanish and the spoofing takes place. So HPQ
happens
Silicon
frequently.
investors, we have a different relationship. I'm talking to all of you. You guys have been awesome. It's been unbelievable. What you guys have done in terms of research and discussion on HPQ. I would really love for you guys to be the lead company, the lead shareholders, and get those financial rewards. There's going to be big money, okay? And you have to watch the interview to talk about it, but I really want you guys to get involved. We need you to be involved. So take that leadership role. And last thing, spread this out to not just your HPQ Silicon boards, but the other boards you may be talking about on different social media platforms. We need you. So please, thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Bernard. You want to say something?
No, I just got another meeting, so I got to split.
Oh, okay.
So
that's it.
Finished.
This is the Singapore edition of Beyond the Press Release with Bernard. Bernard, great work again. So much going to be so much going to be going on the next 12 days. I'm going to presume there's definitely going to be more battery numbers, 250 cycles, I guess. And fingers crossed, but it sounds like the fume silica we're going to be hearing about. So if you can, just hold off until Monday or Tuesday, because I'm going to be flying back. And I'm going to have a 20-hour flight back. But guys, I'm going to have some amazing news to announce for everybody, and how Agoracom is going to change the nature with real-world asset tokenization financing for small-cap public companies. It's real. I've signed 2 agreements with Dubai groups, and I can't wait to show it all to you. And Agoracom continues to lead the path, and I'm happy to do that on behalf of everybody. So thanks for joining us. Have a great day. In my terms, have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Hey Small Cap fam, I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agoracom? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agoracom small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.